Here, I think let me turn down that tabletop audio just a little bit. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Character Creation Hour, the very second installment of this idea that I've had for a while, and I've actually done a little bit before. But last week I built a character in Dungeons and Dragons, because building characters for TTRPGs is just one of my favorite things to do. I'm sending out a tweet right now. Live now! Building characters in tabletop RPGs is one of my favorite things to do, and I just really enjoy the process, and I know lots of you out there do too, so I figured it might be fun to do it a little bit together. Now, as I have just said, last week I did a character in Dungeons and Dragons. We built a Celestial Patron Warlock. That was lots of fun. But today I thought that it would be fun to build a character in the brand new game being kickstarted as we speak, Fate of Cthulhu. Oh, hello, Smartamaster in the chat. Hello and welcome. What you can see that I have on screen here is the cover of the prototype PDF that you can get of Fate of Cthulhu for backing the Kickstarter. And so I'm not going to be just sending out that PDF or making it available to download here, because what you should do if you think it looks cool is you should go back to Kickstarter, and that's the way that you should obtain your your copy, I guess, of the PDF. But then what I also have on the left here is a page from the PDF that I have just made separate so that we can look at it. And this is what the character sheet looks like in this game. So let's look at that a little bit. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So one of the things that is important to know about this game, if you are not familiar with the system at all, is that it is in fact based on the Fate core system of RPGs, which have been around for a while. And if you've seen any of This Space for Rent, which is the science fiction RPG that I've streamed some on this channel, that's based on a Fate-based game as well. And one of the big aspects, one of the most important elements of the Fate system is what are known as aspects. Everything has aspects. Characters have aspects, systems have aspects, NPCs have aspects, situations have aspects, places have aspects. The idea of an aspect is a short phrase or sentence that is always true about something. And it is used to define things and define elements of them in ways that can be invoked or compelled as part of the game mechanics. And so, for example, if you decide that your high concept aspect of your character is that you are a lone wolf sniper, right? That would be something that's always true about your character. It's sort of a defining trait for them. And so the way that would work in play is that you always keep it in mind in terms of role-playing the character. But also, it means that the things that would be true about you, if you are definitely a lone wolf sniper, should be true. You would be theoretically good at sniping, like marksmanship. You might have a preference to being alone. And the way that it works mechanically in the system is that if, for example, you needed to make a crucial shot, you could invoke that aspect of being a lone wolf sniper and get a bonus on your attack roll in that turn. But you pay a fate point to do it. And you have a certain amount of fate points, and you get fate points in various ways. So one of the ways that you get fate points is by accepting a compel on an aspect. So what might happen in the game is that the GM would, in a certain circumstance, say, everybody has returned to the hotel room and they're trying to relax and get a night's sleep. But for you, Mr. Lone Wolf Sniper, this is too many people and you need a little breathing space. So I'm going to give you a fate point, or offer you a fate point, to compel Lone Wolf Sniper to say that you feel like you need some air and you go off by yourself. And so that would be a way to shift the narrative to encourage people to role play these aspects of their characters, but that's also how you get fate points. You also have a certain number that you just automatically get at the start of every session, and that's called the refresh. So let's look a little bit at the way the aspects work in this particular game. So we have the high concept aspect, the trouble, relationship, and then there are two more. And so let's look in the PDF where it talks about when you're building the characters and the way that you would, there we go. So the high concept aspect, as we say here, is a broad description of the character, covering, the vital bits, how you would open your pitch for the character when telling a friend about them. The trouble is like something that, it's a flaw, as the Dungeons and Dragons equivalent might be the character flaw. But the idea is that there's something about this character that is a problem for them and it complicates their life. The relationship is going to be something that is inherently about this character's connection to one of the other characters in the party. And it should be, as we said earlier, the aspect should be something that is always true. And so that means that, for example, you probably wouldn't want to say, I get along with so-and-so, if the truth is that sometimes you actually do squabble. It should be something more like, so-and-so once saved my life. Right? And that would mean it's something that's always true, regardless of how you might role play it in any given moment. And then the other aspects are what's known in this game as free aspects. And what you can do is you can make those anything you want. But as we scroll down here, we see there's also corrupted aspects. What does that mean? Well, this is a game about the Cthulhu mythos after all, so we'll get into that. In fact, actually, that's a good opportunity to scroll back up and look a little bit at how the game introduces that whole idea. What is Fate of Cthulhu? And we talk about the concept of this game is something that I just absolutely am in love with, which is the idea that it's kind of combining Terminator with Call of Cthulhu or something, because the idea is the great old one has risen. It's the apocalypse. It's the end. The last vestiges of humanity are hiding out wherever they can, but everything is doomed. And yet, some people have found that by reaching out to Yog-Sothoth, one of the other great old ones other than the one that has risen to end the world, they have found that they can send people back in time. And the idea is the mission for these people being sent back in time is to try to prevent the rise of the great old one, or at least change the timeline enough that humanity might have a better chance. So even if you can't stop Cthulhu or the King in Yellow or whoever it is, even if you can't stop them from rising altogether, maybe you can at least make humanity a little bit better prepared for the fight to come, right? And so that's a very cool idea, but inherent to this idea that you still have to rely on one of the great old ones to travel back in time, anyone who is playing a character who is one of these time travelers has to start with a level of corruption. And the corruption in this game becomes something where we have one of these aspects. It can be corrupted, as you see on the screen right here. So the idea of a corrupted aspect is you replace whatever was originally there with a new corrupted aspect, which means something about you as a character has changed fundamentally. And this is a Lovecraftian horror game, and so there's lots of like body horror and that sort of thing involved here. And the idea is that this corruption is something that makes you fundamentally less human in probably a horrifying way, but that also gives you some more than human ability. So, for example, what if your hands are like one of your arms is replaced with a tentacle or something like that? And then that's obviously horrifying. As you're trying to deal with people, you would probably have to try to keep that hidden, but maybe that tentacle is actually very strong. And so now you have this extra ability at the cost of sacrificing some of your humanity. And that's kind of how the corruption works. And so you can play a character who's from the present and gets involved with this whole mission somehow, or you can play a character who's one of the time travelers. But all time traveling characters have to start with some corrupted aspect right from the beginning. And so that's kind of cool. And so what we see here is that you can have an aspect, and then there's a little marker to say if an aspect has been corrupted. So how does an aspect get corrupted? Well, there's a couple of ways that you can gain corruption. But what we have is what they call the corruption clock in this game. And so various things could happen during play that would require you to mark corruption. For example, anytime you interact with Old One technology in the form of like spells or rituals, those are powerful things that can allow you to do things that would be impossible otherwise, and yet any contact at all with the great Old One technology is going to, corrupt you in a small way. And so there are various things that might require you to mark corruption. And so you mark 1 spot, 2 spots, 3 spots, 4 spots, and so on. When you have filled all 4, you clear them, but now you have to corrupt one of your aspects. Now, you corrupt only one at a time, but if you ever get to a point where they are all corrupted, you have lost your humanity entirely. You become a servitor of the Great Old One, and your party members will have no choice but to kill you. If they can. Ooh. Right? So that's kind of the idea of corruption here. And so the other things that we'll talk a little bit about here is while we're looking at, so refresh is, as I mentioned, the number of fate points that you would start every session with, regardless of any other factors. We have stress boxes, physical and mental stress, and so when you are in various sort of conflict scenarios, whether it's outright combat or even just like an extremely heated argument, that you mark stress, the appropriate stress. And so you could take 3 hits of physical stress, 3 hits of mental stress. If you ever are completely full up and you cannot absorb any more stress, then you are taken out, and essentially you lose the conflict and the enemy gets to decide what happens to you. If at some point before that happens you decide to concede, what it means is essentially you lose the conflict, but you get to decide. So for example, if you are fighting over some key artifact or something, conceding might mean that you lose the artifact, but you escape with your life. Then the consequences are other ways that you can absorb stress. So for example, let's say you have all 3 mental stress boxes and 2 physical stress boxes filled already, and you get another hit that needs 2 more stress boxes. Well, what you can do is accept a mild consequence. And that's sort of like a minor injury, like sprained ankle or hands are shaking or that sort of thing, where it can absorb 2 stress, but now that is an aspect that is true about your character. And it, as we say, aspects are things that are always true. So for example, if you accepted a mild consequence and you said that your hands are shaking, what that's going to inherently mean is that everything that you are going to do until you can clear that has to be viewed through the lens of your hands are shaking. So maybe you might have more trouble doing something, or the difficulty of a certain roll might be higher, or enemies could invoke that against you in a fight. And so likewise, mild, moderate, severe obviously are going to be more serious respectively and require more intervention in order to eventually heal those things and clear them. Then we have skills, which are going to be pretty familiar if you are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons or any other Fate game. But we have the ones that are sort of specific to this. Yeah, exactly. Trying to fire a gun. Good luck aiming with shaking hands. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make a shoot roll. It just means that if the GM is trying to consider how difficult something is to do, maybe that's something that they take into account in deciding how difficult it is. Or that, they can invoke or, compel that you've got shaking hands. Makes it more difficult for you. So as we look at our different, skills here, got academics, which is going to be, your science type stuff. And that's also where like medicine roles and that sort of thing would be. But one of the things that the game really does make clear is things like, if you have a high academics skill, even though that is the skill that would generally apply for medicine, if you have established in fiction that your character's strong academics are in astrophysics, that does not mean that you automatically get to use that skill to, for example, give sutures to someone who's bleeding out, right? It's not an automatic thing. You have to be able to defend it within the fiction that your character would know how to do something. So athletics, pretty standard. That's, just any running around, jumping, that sort of thing. Burglary, anything sort of related to crime. Crafts, contacts is like, I know a guy. I know someone who will give us a safe house. I know somewhere we can get some clothes, that sort of thing. Crafts, that's anything that you're going to be able to sort of build or, rig up to get together. Like if you want to say, I want to make a Molotov cocktail, that would be like a crafts roll. Deceive, straightforward. Drive, it's like if you're driving a car. Because, the intent with this game is that it takes place in the present day. So all the sorts of things that you might need to do in the present day if you're fighting a great old one cult. Right? So driving certainly is relevant there. Empathy is your ability to kind of read other people. Fight is if you're like physically struggling with someone or punching or kicking, that sort of thing. As opposed to shoot, which is lower down the list. Investigate, obviously, I think is straightforward. Lore is specifically the skill relating to, like, do you actually know anything about the Great Old Ones? Can you figure out how their spells work? Do you know anything about the history of a certain ancient text? That's going to be a lore roll. Notice is kind of like perception. Physique is just like your literal physical strength, like if you're just trying to keep a raving madman pinned down or something like that. That's physique. Provoke is when you're essentially trying to piss someone off or manipulate them into doing something that they don't want to do otherwise, in such a way that it would not make more sense for it to be deceive or rapport. Likewise, rapport is more like when you're being friendly. So if you're trying to manipulate someone and the way that you're doing it is kind of like, hey, buddy, come on, how about you just let us in the back? We won't cause a mess. That's rapport. But if you're saying, hey, buddy, how about you let us on in the back and there won't be any trouble? That's going to be provoke. Resources is literally kind of like money or supplies, or like you have a stash somewhere or that sort of thing. Shoot, we kind of covered already. Stealth, straightforward again. Will is specifically the skill that you use to defend against the unknowable horror of the Great Old Ones. So basically, if you see a Shoggoth coming up and attacking and coming close to you, and it is so horrible that your brain rebels at even trying to process what you're seeing, you're defending against mental strain but with a will roll. That's how that works. So the last bit that we haven't talked about yet on the character sheet here, got stunts, regular stunts, and you start with 2 for free, and you can get, so as we see, refresh starts at 3, so you would have 3 points to start every session. Regular stunts you can start with 2, and if you want to have 3, then you would have a refresh of 2. And then if you wanted to have 4 stunts, you could have a refresh of 1, and so on. And the way stunts work is basically they're special things that your character can do. And the general way that they work is that they have, first of all, let me just say as a brief aside, this book has a very great summary of the basic fate rules, even separately from the Cthulhu aspect, elements of it, like just the summarizing how stunts and fate points and aspects and all of that work. It's very well written. But so, for example, the way you have, so the way a stunt would be written, one example would be like, because I blank, I get a +2 when I use a certain skill in order to do a certain thing. So basically, you would say you get an extra bonus to certain rolls in certain situations, and you would decide what the specifics are there. And so that would be just like a bonus to a certain kind of roll in a certain kind of situation. And then the other one might be slightly different, changing the rules of the game. Like, I described how normally if you were wanting to try to say, I know a guy, to try to find a safe house, for example, right? Well, you might, for your character, have a stunt that says, you are so familiar with the world of academia that when you are trying to find a specialist in something, you can roll academics instead of contacts, right? That would be another example of a stunt. And we have, also various things like this. For example, you might have a character have a stunt that says they can just declare they always have matches on their person. Just they have matches. There's no scenario where they wouldn't have matches. And then that sort of thing. Or you could have, so like their example of one of those rule-breaking stunts is, because I'm a physics PhD and don't believe in magic, so those would be like, physics PhD and don't believe in magic might be one of their aspects for their characters. They can use academics to defend against backlash instead of will, but only when using Great Old One tech. So like that's the stunts. And so they have some example stunts that you can look at, but they're kind of encouraging you to choose your own. So I think that's what we'll do when we get to that point. And then corruption stunts would be when one of your aspects gets corrupted, you essentially would get a corruption stunt to go along with it. And the idea there is the corruption stunt is what you're defining your new ability that as a result of having this corrupted aspect. And corruption stunts are more powerful. I'm trying to, where is the, all right, well, I could search through here to find the, or I could go back up to the table of contents. So corruption stunts are more powerful. So like we saw the regular stunts, and they might give you like a +2 bonus to something. Well, and a similar corruption stunt might give you a +4 to something, or give you a +2 and be able to use a different skill. But the price you pay for that is that every time you use that stunt, you have to mark corruption. So just like any time you try to use the old one's tech against them, you mark corruption. Anytime you use your corruption's ability to help you, you're bringing yourself a little bit closer to the old ones themselves, and therefore you have to mark corruption. And you have this ticking clock where you're making yourself progressively more powerful, but also less human, with this ticking clock towards eventually there is a point of no return, and you're doomed. So let's go ahead and start thinking about a character. And I think just for being interesting today, I think a time traveler character lets us experiment with the corruption piece as well. So let's think about what's our high concept. I mentioned lone wolf sniper earlier, so maybe let's just go ahead and run with that. Let's see. So if I can sniper. All right, so let's say, whoops. There we go. So our high concept is that they're a lone wolf sniper. Oh, sorry, I'm having a little bit of... Need to tell it to not click to... Oh, well, it's fine. What did I just do now? Okay, I put it on a different layer, I think. Yeah, there we are. Okay, so in any event, we're the high concept, lone wolf sniper. So this person, is someone who has already lived through the horrors of the rise of the great old one. That's the past for them. And, just because time travel can obviously manifest in lots of different ways depending on what the rules are in various fiction, the rules in this one are that even if you change the timeline, your personal past doesn't change. So, you never are going to erase yourself, but you can change the respective future. It's kind of like a splintered timeline. Nothing you do is going to affect you personally. Whatever happened to you still happened to you, but you can potentially change what happens to everyone else. It's the idea. But you've lived through these horrors, and now you're going to do something about trying to fix it. And one of the things that I think is actually cool is that they pretty much establish that this is a short period of time that we're talking about. So the time in which people are being sent back from is 2030, and the time they're being sent back to is 2020. And so essentially it's only 10 years, which means that it's a pretty high likelihood that when whoever is going back in time, their past self is going to be around somewhere. That could be interesting. How does that play out, right? But so, okay, we've got a lone wolf sniper. What's this lone wolf sniper's trouble? What's something that, they just can't, it makes things hard for them. And so, what if they have a drinking problem? Maybe it's, I don't know, I'm just trying to think things that it could be. A drinking problem could work, but it could also, let's think what else maybe it could be, is that what if it's something like, drugs, meth? Yeah, so that's definitely something that it could be. It's in the same vein, substance abuse problems generally. The idea that people need to sort of find ways to numb themselves from the horror makes sense. One of the other things I was considering was something that ties in a little bit to this lone wolf sniper idea. That's small talk makes me itch. Or, just that, they just really struggle with the idea of being able to do those ordinary sorts of conversations with people. So let's look though at this example. Some of the examples they have. The hounds of Tyndalos have my scent. Always tempted to use magic. My family's caught up in the conspiracies. Utterly terrified of deep water. About as subtle as a mule. So we can see that they have quite a range of examples there. It's it could be something that is a problem with their own personality, or it could be something that's actually external to their own internal self, but it's just something that's, true about them, like they've been marked somehow. Like, so that's something that we could do. But I don't know, maybe I feel like my instinct still is to lean into that idea that, this is a project, this is a mission that really can't be done without connecting and working with other people. But that's just always been something that this character has really struggled with. Was there when Cthulhu? Well, was there when Cthulhu emerged is good, except that it's also based on the way these things kind of play out. That's true of pretty much everybody left alive, because these are global catastrophes. But I think we play into that with the corruption aspect a little bit. So it's a cool idea, but I think we would want it to be more specific, right? So it could be. I wonder, like, I'm trying to think. Like one of the other examples they have here is just a huge jerk. Failed to stop it. Well, so like that might, failed to stop it would be something like the younger self knew about the conspiracy and tried to stop it before. But yeah, so that could be something like that. The younger self did know or learned about the conspiracy before everything actually went completely awry, but because they were, did not have the foreknowledge of exactly what was going to happen, they were not able to do anything to stop it. And so what that would mean is that we would have a high degree of likelihood that our time traveling character might very well come into contact with their younger self, because their younger self is also there in the mix trying to stop things from happening. So that's kind of interesting. So let's see. I think we could do that. I failed to stop it. I learned of the conspiracy. Well, I failed to stop it. That works. I like that, actually. Oh boy. Something is acting a little funny here with the the way that I have this set up is not ideal in terms of just where, like, it's making things like zoom all around here, the map view and all that. Yeah, okay, that's annoying. Why is it doing that? That's so weird. There we go. Come on, man. I didn't play around with this very much before I started it, so, like... Man. Yeah, I need to turn off, like, snap to grid or something here. Let's see if I can figure that out. Grid is enabled, but is it, like... I could turn the grid off for sure. Okay. Got Lone Wolf Sniper. Zoom back in a little bit here. Failed to stop the rise. Yeah, why? There we go. Alright. Failed to stop the rise. Layer. There we go. There we go. Okay. Okay, that's a little... There we go. So relationship would need to be... is it Alt to stop the snapping? I don't know. I mean, I could try that in a minute here. Relationship, then. So relationship is something that normally you wouldn't assign for your character until you kind of knew what your other fellow characters were doing. Because it's supposed to be something that you agree on between the two of you, because it has to be something that is always true and not subjective in that sense. So we could imagine, though, that maybe one of the other characters in hey, one idea that would be kind of funny is that given that we have this idea of the younger self had learned and tried to stop the conspiracy before but failed, we could theoretically imagine a scenario where there are two different players are playing the younger and older versions of the character. That would be kind of funny. My spotter knows me best. I like that. That could work, but it kind of conflicts with lone wolf sniper. I think the what if it could be something like, we'll make up a name, but it could be something to the effect of like, only Carol knows all my secrets, or something like that. And then why does it, I don't know why it feels the need to, I'm not clicking anything. I'm just, boy. I got some setting on here that's goofy. Man, wow. I don't know what that's all about here. Why is it doing that? I'm trying to drag it, but it's my mouse is moving the whole map around too. All right. Well, technical difficulties are sometimes part of the experience of playing TTRPGs all online. Like, why is it? Yeah, see, because if I do this, that, like, all right, okay. Oh, somehow it fixed it. I fixed it. I fixed it somehow. I know that. I knew it. I could do it. And then the other aspects, although we've established that this character is, that is what it's like. It's like the pan tool is active at the same time, but I don't know. But in any event, the other aspects are something where at least one of them is going to have to be corrupted based on the time travel. But I think it makes sense when building the character to imagine maybe what it was before it got corrupted. And we should note, too, that the corruption of an aspect is not necessarily like a modification to that aspect. It replaces it. And so you could theoretically... And the idea is somewhat that you are losing parts of your original personality. That's part of the intent. So, for example, if you had, like, always sees the best in people or something like that, the idea is not necessarily to figure out how to twist that, although you could, but it's really almost like it doesn't have to be related at all. So we need two more free aspects then. So we could have these also just be things like, see, look, it's doing that again. I don't know why. I don't know what that's all about. I was trying to scroll over to this other window. The free aspects are things that, like, they could be, my revolver never lets me down. Do you know who my family is? The biggest person in the room, light-fingered lockpicker, high school track star, that sort of thing. So, like, they could be personality. They could also just be true things. How about, what if this character is... one of the things that, I've realized that I'm kind of imagining this character as a male character. We hadn't really decided yet, but I think I kind of had that in my head. But, maybe that's something that, like we can examine in the sense of, like, just because the idea of a lone wolf sniper is like, is that a default male character? What if The other aspect could just be something, um, well, and like that, my revolver never lets me down, and the idea that they're a lone wolf sniper, like something. My gun is my partner. No, that's good. I like that a lot. Yeah. All right. And then, I never. Please don't ever have it on the pan. I don't know why it's doing that. It's so weird. Yeah, I'm not sure what is happening. Like, why is it doing that? And why did it? Yeah. Anyway, okay. So I'll need to figure this out before I actually like try to run this game. I'll probably try to handle these character sheets in a different way. And then let's say that the last free aspect that we have that is going to be the one that gets replaced. Let's say that was something like. Yeah, my mouse is doing something weird, I think. I don't know. So this last aspect, let's say, what was it before? How about we say that this character what if they're always really handsome before? Like, he's got the looks, or yeah. So let's just say that they're sort of just very handsome, like they were always very good looking before. So like, I'm actually not even going to type it right now, just because the whole idea here is that we want to kind of know what it was before it got corrupted. But now that now that we have this character who's going to be traveling back in time, they are corrupted by that process. And so what has happened to them? And part of the intent with these things is that each aspect of corruption that you take makes you more and like less and less human as a result, more and more other or monstrous. So the first one doesn't have to be super dramatic. It could just like, wow, why does it do that? Why? Stop. Yeah, okay. So like some of their example, like one of the examples they give here is that a character is oozing black ichor, and it's like obviously like crazy and gross and sort of horrifying like in person, but the benefit is that it makes them like slippery. And so the corruption stunt allows him to spray ichor in every direction like a squid spraying ink to get out of dangerous situations. So like that's horrifying, right? So, but it could be anything like that. And so I think it's fun to have it not just be like random, though, like to have it sort of seem like it's connected somehow, especially since this first one is really like, even though the character themselves would not be choosing this, it's something that, if we're replacing conventionally handsome, it feels like it should be something that's different than that, right? Like, what if, what if it's, what if like face is gaunt and pale? Yeah, that works. I was actually thinking almost like the other direction, like that you have weird like sores on your face that would have to do something though, like because that's the flip side of these corrupted aspects, is that they are horrifying in some way, but also give you some significant benefit, even if it's kind of a scary one. So, like, face is gaunt and pale. What if this has made you a little bit like Clayface? Like, when you're concentrating, you have a +2 to deceive rolls to make yourself look like someone else. But only when you're concentrating, and whenever you're not, your face kind of like sags and looks awful. Like, my face is a mask. How about that? All right. And then, yeah, for some reason, I can't just, okay. So, I really wish I knew what was going on with that whole thing. But I think I'll just, I don't know why my mouse is doing that. I wonder if there's some setting that I could change that would make it stop acting like that. Because I was trying to just draw a mark. Like I have no idea why it's doing this. Hang on, I'm gonna try something here. Because I've got this image that is on the map background. So I wonder if I change that and put it on token layer instead. Does that... Oh look, that just fixes the problem. Okay, good. So I don't know why that was the issue, but it seems like we fixed it. So, yeah, so this is the corrupted aspect. And then, yeah, okay, good. So apparently just having this image on the map screen was the problem, even though I have no idea why that would be a problem. So stunts would be things like, well, you know what? Let's go to skills first before we do the stunts. So the way skills work is that you start with 1 that would be a +4, 2 that would be +3, 3 that would be +2, 4 that would be +1, and everything else is mediocre. So these are not easy to type in. So I don't know. I think, well, maybe it'll be easier now than it was. So let's think. So shoot, I think, makes sense for this to be this character's +4, right? Can I add a text thing? Okay, well, so much for whatever the issue was before. So, oh, you know what? I wonder if what it is that I'm trying to add. No, I don't. Help me. Okay, so I think 4 is shoot. Notice as a +3. I think that makes sense. You know what? I'm going to add a bunch of numbers. Oh wait, this is going to have to be... Oh no, what did I just do? I just did it again. Oh, for crying out loud. Okay. I swear it wasn't acting like this when I was testing it earlier. Oh. Why? Why is it doing this? I have no idea what's going on here. What? Oh man, this is okay. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know why. I've never had Roll20 do this to me before. I don't know what the problem is. You know what? Honestly, so what I could theoretically do is that you could use the built-in Roll20 character sheet, or I could have printed this out and just be writing on it like by hand. But whatever. So I think I'm gonna try actually exiting out of this and rejoining it real quick, and then hopefully we'll... Whoops! No! Come on. Just to see if that makes any difference here. Probably won't, but it doesn't hurt to try. And then, okay. All right. Okay. And then I think those ended up just they're like on a different layer. So let's just add more down here. I think something, so like when I just try to click, when I try to just click to try to type something, that seems to be what's shifting it into doing that. But I don't know why. Because when I just do a single click to drag something, it's, I don't know. Okay, so we need another +3, but we're gonna have. So what's our other +3? Let's decide on that. Okay, so the another +3. It could be fight if we really wanted to. Oh well, there you go, stealth. Yeah, see. So we have a very focused character here then. And then once again, we're getting this whole thing. Wow, man. Wow, I am just perplexed by what is happening here. I wonder if there's some setting here, because I've never had Roll20 do this to me before. I don't know. Well, I wish I could figure it out more clearly, but what are you gonna do? Like I'm getting lots of things where it's acting like I'm right clicking when I'm not. When I'm trying to left click. Okay, so stealth. All right, let's get some of these on here. So I think those all make sense. It makes sense that this is a very physical character, so maybe we give them athletics. Will. I feel like will is something that would be important for this character. They just this resolve, this ability to, to power through things on a mental level. So we need one more 2. Probably rapport is not going to be their big thing based on what we've seen. Crafts, maybe, would be another thing. I think, I think crafts. Let's do crafts for another 2. And so now we're going to have wow, see, why is it? See, when I like just single click, it does this. But when I right click, it places it permanently, but then starts dragging me around. I wonder if my mouse is just malfunctioning somehow, and I've just never noticed before. All right. Okay. So yeah, wow. I Roll20. My experience with Roll20, everybody, is has always been that it's actually not wireless, though. It's and honestly, I have not experienced it doing anything unusual in any other application. So it's only in this this current application is it actually doing anything strange. So, okay. All right. Okay, well, I'm tired of messing with that, so we're just going to talk through it, and I'm not going to type it on. So I think what we would be looking at then for our plus ones is, let's maybe give a plus one to academics, one to burglary, one to fight, and one to provoke. I think those all make sense to me. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on with my controls here for the future. But boy, so in any way, I think academics make sense because the truth is snipers, I think, actually do have to study a fair amount and they have to understand like physics and wind speed and stuff. Fight, provoke, and then burglary, I think, was the other one I said plus one, and that they have to, the idea that they have to know how to infiltrate certain circumstances makes sense. So from here, what we would need to do is, oh, you know what? Maybe we should have at least one on deceive, because that's what our corrupted aspect is going to, be like a bonus to that. But I mean, that doesn't mean they have to be great at it to begin with. It just means that they could be better at it in certain circumstances if they want to try to make themselves briefly look like some other character, some other person, or even just not like themselves. So I think that, oh God, I want to type stuff, but I don't want to mess with this whole nightmare scenario. Why? Okay, I'm trying putting back the image back on the GM layer, so see if that helps. It won't help. Nothing helps. Oh, so the corruption stunts. So let's think about what some of the regular stunts are, though. Gain. Because I am a lone wolf sniper, I can, let's see, maybe we can have just like, I am used to seeing at a distance, and gain +2 to notice things that are far away. How about that? Let's see if I can, yeah. So I think that's an example of a good stunt. And then, all right, and then so I think another, all right, so another, oh, you know what? Field medicine is maybe a good stunt to have, because of my field medicine training. Gain +2 to academics roles to give medical treatment with minimal supplies, or in the field, or in dangerous environments. Yeah. All right. So I don't know why everything's pale now. Whatever. So the basic idea is you start with 2 stunts, and so we could add a third stunt, because right now we start with a refresh of 3. So let's just go ahead and leave it at 3. But if we wanted, we could add another regular stunt here and and take that refresh down to 2. But let's go ahead and leave it there for what we're doing here. And then the corruption stunt is the one that we kind of talked about with the my face is a mask here. So let's type that out. And I was saying a bonus earlier, but the corruption stunt is supposed to have this extra thing. Pale because of layers, but I think that like this face is a mask is saying that because my face has become malleable, gain +4 to deceive rolls to impersonate another person, another character, I guess, or just look different. And so the price, of course, is that when you're not concentrating, you look kind of saggy and awful. So this looks like that could be something that could be really useful. But what we have to remember in this game is that every time you use your corruption stunt, you have to mark corruption. So you're moving more in the direction of getting to another, having another ability, but at the price of losing more of your humanity. And, if you still have to, in your mission to try to stop the rise of the Great Old One, if you want to still try to have to interact with a lot of people, the more horrifying you look, the harder that might be. So in any case, let's just give this person a name, if I can manage to actually scroll up to where the name goes. Oh boy. All right, and name this character's name is Alexander Drake. I feel like that's someone else's name already, but sure. Alexander Drake, this character who's a lone wolf sniper. Their trouble is that their mission is going to be interfered with because their younger self is actually also in the mix and is going to cause complications. Only Carol knows all of Alexander's secrets. My gun is my partner, but my face is a mask. So this is how you build a character in Fate of Cthulhu. One last little note I want to just double check is that, if I can get my screen to stop scrolling around on me. Okay. The physique and will are two skills that change things a little bit if you have them high enough. Let me just double check if I can find where it goes. Okay. If you have average or fair physique or will, you get an extra stress box. And so because we didn't give one to physique, but we did give +2 to will, which means that we would have an extra mental stress box. We'd have 4 instead of 3. And I'm not going to write it on there. But so, for example, if you had 5 for physique or will, you might get an extra mild consequence slot as well. And +2 extra stress boxes. So, those are reasons that like choosing higher skills for those specific things would also make you able to take more punishment. That's the price. It's like it's less situationally useful, but makes you just more resilient generally. But so that's how it is. And so I am definitely planning to run this game at some point. I'm excited about it, but I'm definitely going to need to figure out how to make Roll20 cooperate better with me. It's probably my fault. I probably have just some weird setting right now, but yeah, that's Fate of Cthulhu. So I definitely, if any of this sounds cool to you, I recommend that you go check out the Kickstarter, which is currently running right now. I contributed, which is why I have access to this very cool book. It's, as you can see, it has places where the art isn't finished, and I think that the text is mostly complete, but what it includes in it is not only just like the rules for how to play, but it also has 5 different timelines where you can deal with Cthulhu coming, or Dagon, or Shub-Niggurath, or Nyarlathotep, or the King in Yellow, and all of those are like built-in scenarios that you can run, and it's very cool. And so any of you though who are thinking that you want to play the game, if you get the PDF, don't read these timelines because that will spoil things for you. I think the one last thing that we'll look at just briefly, that's not specific to the character, but it's specific to how the game is played. Let me show you guys this. Let's see. It's right here. This was the timeline. So this is, wow, it's very tiny. Wow, man, why is, ugh. It wasn't doing this earlier. I have some key setting that I'm sure is just screwing me all up right now, and I don't know what it is, but anyway. So the way that the planning works, I'm getting to, wow, why is it doing this, man? Because it literally, like I said, when I set all this up before the stream, it didn't do this. So, all right, hang on. Let me zoom all the way out, so maybe that way it won't. It'll briefly not drag me around. Okay, but now just I can't select it at all. Okay, alright. Come on now. There we go. Okay. So, let's just talk about what we have in this sheet. So this is a sheet that would basically be something that's shared amongst all the players. It's something that's everyone's all aware of. Is that the idea of this is that you know, whoever's the time traveling players know in their world what happened. They know that the Great Old One rose, and even though the people in the future don't necessarily have perfect knowledge of everything that led to it, there's been a lot of smart people doing a lot of studying, and so what there always is we know the details of how the Great Old One actually rose. You know, there's generally a key person involved. There's a place where it happened first. You know, there's details and info involved. But generally, there are 4 catalyst events that are known. That, like, for example, they might know there was a key. A copy of the Necronomicon was put up for auction at this specific auction house in this time, and it was bought by a certain person and then disappeared, but we think that had something to do with it. So one of the missions that the time traveler will have is to see if you can intercept that copy of the Necronomicon and either destroy it or hide it or do something else with it to keep it from helping the rise of the Great Old One. And so there are 4 events that need to be altered. And what's really cool about how this all works out, though, is that the party kind of chooses which one to do first. You have sort of a mini adventure of trying to solve that particular event. But depending on how you succeed at it, like whether you do well or whether it goes badly, how does it end up, you change the timeline. And so the way that the other events work out might not be the way your timeline remembered them. And so the more you change things, the less your foreknowledge from the future can be relied upon. And then also things happen with the what are known as ripples. And so there are certain characteristic events that can happen that will give a check mark to the Great Old One track or to the Resistance track. Things like if you invoke a timeline aspect, like you know that one of the timeline aspects is that there are ghouls on the prowl, and you invoke that and succeed on the roll, that would give you a positive ripple. And so when you fill up a track, you give it a checkbox here. When you fill up a track here, you get a checkbox there. And that makes the future events either better or worse. And so it's a whole mechanic for changes to the timeline, which I think is very cool. So in any event, I'll go ahead and leave it there. But this is Fate of Cthulhu, and I'm kind of excited about it. Even hopefully I will figure out what I was doing wrong with Roll20 to have it thwart me so much here. Perhaps it is the bending of time and space due to the proximity of Great Old One technology. That must be it. So I'll go ahead and leave it there, though. And thanks for watching. And feel free to follow and or subscribe to my channel here. And tomorrow night, I will be continuing my Dungeons and Dragons campaign. So many levels. We'll be streaming live here Wednesday night, and we'll move it along. All right, so I'll leave it there, and good night, everybody.